Okay, hello again. Today we're going to be reading The Magic School Bus and Plant Seeds. It's going to be a book about how living things grow. And this book was written by Patricia Ruff. Every class probably learns about plants and seeds, but not every class has Miss Fizzle for a teacher. When Miss Frizzle does something, she goes all the way. She started by letting us plant a whole garden behind our school. A photographer was coming to take a picture of our garden, so we all wanted to do and make it look the best. To think that these beautiful tomato plants started from tiny seeds, Carlos said, and some soil, sunshine, water, and some tender, loving care, and you've got this great garden. And once that photographer takes our pictures, we'll be famous, Carlos said. We could be on the cover of Planted magazine. Would you like me to autograph your seed packet, Dorothy Ann? I think I'll think about it, said Dorothy Ann. Phoebe was not excited as Carlos. I wish I had the beautiful plant I raised at my old school. Tim put the finishing touch on a drawing. Phoebe smiled. That's it. Thank you, Tim, she said. Still, I wish I had the real thing for our picture this afternoon. Miss Frizzle spotted the drawing. Your plant looks lovely, Phoebe, she said. Not to worry. It's a simple matter to stop by your old school on our little field trip. We all piled in the old school bus. Carlos was worried that we might not get back in time for the photographer. This could take all day. Couldn't we flower something, Miss Frizzle? Excellent idea, Carlos, she said. Suddenly, the bus began to spin. It rose in the air as if it had wings. It did have wings. We were riding in the ladybug. As we flew over buildings and trees, Phoebe began to look nervous. What if Mr. C. Plot sees us, she said. We never turned into ladybugs when he was my teacher. Just then, we all saw a school below. Phoebe stared. There it is, she gasped. The bus swooped in low, though, to the school's garden. It looked like a jungle. Here's the perfect landing pad, pedal, said Miss Frizzle. The bus landed with a bounce and crawled along the petal of a huge flower. We crawled one step too far. Suddenly, our ladybug bus slid into something wet and slippery. We're stuck in some goop, Ralphie yelled. It's called nectar, Dorothy Ann said. Follow me, class, said Miss Fritz. She opened the doors and slipped out into the lake of nectar. We didn't know it then, but Mr. Seed Pot could have reached out and picked us up. Phoebe's plants certainly have grown well, he said to himself. She worked hard on them. I really should take one to her new school for her. Mr. Seedpot heard a buzz and looked up. Ah, bees. I won't disturb their work right now, he said, turning to a patch of tomato plants. We also saw the bees coming, and they were headed right into our flower. Yikes, air raid, shouted Arnold. Glory be, said the Fritz happily. As soon as these bees drink enough nectar, then we can crawl out of here. All aboard the lady bus. Please, next stop, Anther. Dorothy Ann is amazing. Even upside down, she could remember what she had read that morning. The anther is the part of the plant that makes pollen. These yellow balls are pollen. Pollen makes me chew, sneeze. At my old school, we never rode on bees. We are your old school, Phoebe. Off we flew. Stuck to the leg of that bee, it was a short ride. At the very next plant, the bee bumped a flower and brushed us off, along with a lot of pollen. Here we are, Miss Fritz announced. Where? Phoebe asked. Tim showed her his picture. I think we're in the center part, the stigma, Tim said. The bee had dropped a lot of pollen here. With a big sneeze, Arnold bumped into a grain of pollen, knocked it over, and fell down some kind of tunnel underneath. I get it, Dorothy Ann said. When pollen from another flower lands on the stigma of another, it grows a pollen tube. Find one of these egg cells, and together they make a seed. Carlos still wasn't happy. No seed can grow into a plant by 3 o'clock, he said. Not without some help, said Miss Frizzle. She reached into the bus, pressed the button, and suddenly things went wild. The seeds were growing bigger and sprouting hair. We need to hurry things along a bit, said Miss Frizzle. Everyone on the bus, please. We all rushed back on the bus, the door slammed shut, and we drove up onto one of the biggest seeds. And the seed around us grew bigger. The flower burst open. We felt the sunshine in and a breeze blowing through the windows of the bus. Suddenly, our seed flew into the air with us on board. Away we flew on the back of our seed, carried along gusts of wind. Carlos still worried. Can't we go any faster, he asked. Well, Miss Frizzle said, this is pretty fast for a seed, but there are seeds that travel by attaching themselves to dogs or birds or people, she said, eyeing a man on a bicycle. No, croaked Phoebe, that's Mr. Seed Pie. But she was too late. Our seed had landed in Mr. Seed Pot's hair. Oh, how embarrassing, Phoebe groaned. Hi, Mr. Seed Pot. Hey, we're headed back to our school. Shh. We were almost there, still stuck in Mr. Seedplot's hair, and we hadn't even been introduced. So we all shouted, hello, Mr. Seedplot, except for Phoebe, who was too embarrassed to talk. But when Mr. Seedplot swung his head to see who was calling him, we flew off. Last stop, Miss Frizzle announced. She pushed a button, poof, the bus got big again. She pushed another button, poof, the seed, which had landed in our garden, grew into a tall plant with a beautiful flower. Ah, there you are, Mr. Seedplot said when he spotted us. I bought one of Phoebe's plants, but I see that she already has one. Nice to see you again, Miss Frizzle. Phoebe gasped. You mean you've met Miss Frizzle before, she said? Mr. Seedplot smiled. Yes, she's a special person. A note to the parents and teachers and kids. A seed is a tiny plant in a wonderfully efficient package, ready to grow when conditions are right. This book tells the story of seeds and the flowers that make them. Pollen is manufactured by the anther, the top part of the flower stamen. This is the male part of the flower. The color markings and scents of flowers attract animals such as bees and hummingbirds, which drink the flower's nectar and carry its pollen to other flowers. Pollen may also travel on the wind. When pollen lands on the stigma of its own kind of flower, it grows a pollen tube that reaches down the pistil to the ovary, the female part of the flower. A sperm cell from the flower travels down into the tube and joins with the egg cell. The fertilized egg cell begins to divide and it becomes a seed. Thank you for listening. Hope to see you again.